We go. And I am absolutely delighted to welcome along Ellie Francis. So Ellie is going to be taking a session this morning on introduction to LinkedIn. And Ellie's a business owner and she works with employers. So she's got a really good take on what employers are looking for. So she works to help employers in recruiting. And it means that she has the inside knowledge as to what employers are actually looking for when it comes to the likes of your LinkedIn profile. So I'm going to hand over to Ellie now to take you through today's session. So very welcome, Ellie. Great to have you along.
Thank you so much. I am delighted to be here. Ulster University is my alma mater as well, so I'm glad to be back and contributing to what I'm hearing is being a very exciting week. So as Gail was saying, I'm here today to talk to you guys about LinkedIn, and it's really an introduction to LinkedIn and how you can get started with the platform in a way that's going to help you with your career. So my name is Ellie. I'm director at Neturnal, and we are an employer branding agency, which basically just means we work alongside employers to help them brand themselves as a good employer and to help them really communicate with people like you and convince you guys as to why you should work for their company specifically. But as Gail was saying, something that I often work with employers on is recruitment and how they actually source their talent. So what they're looking for in top tier talent and how they can actually reach those people. And something that we would use quite often really to source great candidates would be LinkedIn. And what that really means for you guys is that LinkedIn's a really important tool on the other side as well for you guys to be connecting with employers. So that's a bit about me. I did go to Ulster University. I went to McGee and I studied law and marketing. So maybe some of you might know me depending on where you're at in your studies. But I really loved my time at Ulster, and I have to say that I'm really glad that they're running initiatives like this. It's so important for you guys and for your future. So you're lucky to have these types of sessions to take advantage of. So today we are going to be talking about LinkedIn, and something that I always like to do with my sessions and make them super interactive and really get an idea of where all of you are and what your sort of experience is in the area. So Gail has very, very kindly offered to set up a poll for us, and what we're going to do is try to gauge whether or not you have a LinkedIn profile already. So some of you do and some of you don't, but I'd love to see sort of how many of you have your LinkedIn profile set up already. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to answer. Okay, so I'm seeing quite a few of you do and some of you don't, which is fine. So pretty good. Having a LinkedIn profile set up is really good. It's really important. But for those of you who don't have it set up just yet, it's something that obviously you can do, and it's fairly simple, and we'll talk about that process today. But for those of you who don't, and for those of you who do, we're going to talk about why use LinkedIn, how can LinkedIn help your career, and essentially why should you bother setting up a LinkedIn? We all have so many platforms to keep us occupied nowadays, so why add another one to the mix? And really it's because first and foremost, companies use LinkedIn to source talent. So as I was saying at the beginning of the session, the first place employers look for a person that they want to headhunt, or even sometimes what we do is if I'm working with a client and they want to hire into a certain role, we will check LinkedIn to check, does such a person exist? Because sometimes if you're hiring into quite a specialist role, perhaps it's that you want a digital marketer with hospitality experience, or you want a software developer who has worked in retail fashion. We actually look into LinkedIn to see, right, how many of these people actually exist, because for some of those more niche roles, we can find sometimes that you have to almost compromise on either experience or whatever that might be. So we always use LinkedIn to check, does such a person exist? But when we are then on LinkedIn, we get what I call sort of Swedish shop eyes, where we see, right, yes, this person does exist, and actually I really like her specifically, or I really like him specifically. And of course, you still have to go through the entire recruitment process, but actually, once they sort of spotted you and they figured out that they really like the look of you, that can be half the battle to getting in there. So actually, the fact that companies use LinkedIn to source talent is one of the best reasons that you should be on LinkedIn. Secondly, once you're in your career, so some of you might already have graduate jobs, some of you might be progressing through your career as we speak. Once you're actually in your career, using LinkedIn can help you to stand out as a high performer. It shows your employer that you're engaged with the world around you, that you don't sort of just sit within the four walls and do your work and go home. But actually, what happens is you are engaged, you know what's going on in your industry, you're engaged with, you know, news in the industry, other people in the industry, and actually it can make you a really, really valuable candidate. And it also shows an employer that you're exposed to other opportunities. So it actually tells them that they need to treat you well, and that they need to make sure that you're enjoying your role, because actually you're exposed to all of this other stuff that's going on. So actually it helps you to stand out as a high performer, and it helps you to appear as someone who's really, really engaged. It also helps you network with others in your industry. So oftentimes we hear this word, and I'm sure it's been used a lot this week, we hear network, network, network. But actually LinkedIn's a really great tool, especially now where we're not really getting out to meet people as such. LinkedIn can be a really great tool to network with people throughout your industry, and we will talk a bit more about networking later on as well, using LinkedIn. And finally, it's a great tool to take control of your career. LinkedIn really is the professional hub. It's where you will find out about new opportunities. It's where you will find out about new trends in your market. You can connect with senior people within your business, and it allows you to really drive the direction of your career and almost have more of a bird's eye view of the bigger picture of what's going on, as opposed to just kind of your own silo where you operate every day. So 4 great reasons to use LinkedIn to help your career, and 4 great reasons to really be on there. So we know that quite a few of you are on LinkedIn, but what I want to know now is what actually, to what extent do you use LinkedIn? So we are going to put up a poll, and what we want to know is actually which of these best describes you and how you use LinkedIn. So are you someone, maybe you've set up a profile but you haven't touched it since? Are you someone who has or is particularly active, maybe you actually comment and post, or are you somewhere in the middle? So Gail's going to kindly put that up for us, and I'd just be interested to see where you guys are in your LinkedIn journey.
Yes, it will be with you in 1 second. It's just the longest one.
Sorry.
No, it's all great. There we go.
Perfect. So have you set up your LinkedIn but you've never actually used it? You use LinkedIn to have a wee look at what's going on the news feed. Do you comment on other people's content, or are you frequently posting on LinkedIn? So I see we have 1 person commenting on other people's content. That's fantastic. Most of you saying that you have set up LinkedIn but you've never used it. Fair enough. And some of you as well saying that you use LinkedIn to have a look at what's going on the news feed. And I think that's where the majority of people are, is either they have it set up because somebody somewhere along the line told you that you needed to be on LinkedIn, but like me and TikTok, like I have TikTok set up, but I have to say I don't really find myself on it very often. but actually some of you are using LinkedIn to browse newsfeed, very good, and 2 people now are commenting on other people's content, and that's fine, and none of you actually frequently are posting on LinkedIn, but that's exactly where you would expect to be, and you can move up towards those types of things if you want to, or you can just use LinkedIn to stay aware. It's important, I think, to know that you don't need to be active 3 times a week consistently on LinkedIn to get results from it. It's just important that you kind of build up where you're at and where you're going with it. So in today's session, we will talk about setting up your profile properly and how that can help building out your network, and also finding job opportunities using LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a great tool for finding opportunities and engaging with companies as well. It's a less traditional way to find open roles, but it actually is really useful as well. So we'll move first and foremost into setting up your LinkedIn profile. And the chances are those of you who are already on LinkedIn will have parts of your profile set up, but perhaps not everything will be set up. And I think with LinkedIn, it can feel quite daunting whenever we start setting up our profile, because it does seem to ask for quite a lot of information. But luckily, it's one of those things that once it's set up, it doesn't change all that often. So setting up your profile is really important. And before we dive into that, I am interested to know from you guys, do you currently have a profile photo on LinkedIn? So does your profile have a photo included, or have you not uploaded one yet? So pretty even, we're looking pretty even. So the majority of you have got a profile photo, but quite a number of you don't as well, and that's fine. It's just something to be thinking about uploading. And I'm just seeing actually one of you guys saying that your photo is just one you've taken from your phone. That's completely fine. We are going to talk about sort of the style of the photo, but actually it's completely fine. It doesn't need to be a professional headshot. It doesn't need to be anything particularly exciting, and we'll get into that, as long as you have a photo up there. And for those of you who don't, it's nothing to worry about. It takes a couple of minutes to upload one, and hopefully after this session, I will have convinced you to drop in there for a couple of minutes and upload one. So we know we need a profile photo. So the thing on LinkedIn is your profile is about 13 times more likely to get viewed if you have a profile photo. I know for me, it's almost human nature. Whenever I'm scrolling or if I'm helping one of my clients, I like to look at someone and know, how to what they look like, get a feel for them, and actually it's a really good way, it's almost a friendly face, and it almost humanizes the profile a little bit. So it's a really good idea to upload a photo, and a great LinkedIn profile photo should look professional. So it should look, in essence, it shouldn't be any old photo that you cut yourself out of. It should look professional, but it doesn't need to be professionally taken. And I think that's really important, because what we often think is actually, I need to have a professional LinkedIn profile photo. I need to have someone take a headshot. I need to work for an organization that takes headshots, and some companies do and some companies don't. But it doesn't need to be professionally taken, particularly nowadays when iPhone cameras are so good. And ultimately, it's a tiny little photo up in the top left of the screen. So as long as it looks professional, nobody is going to be clicking into it and thinking, right, well, a photographer obviously didn't take that, because 9 times out of 10 on LinkedIn, a photographer hasn't taken the person's photo. Should be sort of head and shoulders, just a kind of professional headshot, wearing something semi-professional, and don't repurpose another photo. And what I mean by that is, don't kind of have half of your friend's arm in it. I have seen glasses of wine. I have seen half of a friend's head. I have seen football shirts and profile photos. Try to just take 5 minutes, against a white wall in your house, and just get the photo taken and get it up. And it can be a selfie, but try to avoid the sort of arm in the selfie. Try to make it just like head and shoulders, and very, very simple. It doesn't need to be complicated, but it should be professional, and it should look professional as well. And just to illustrate, I have an example. So the one on the left, the photo on the left, was my LinkedIn profile whenever I left university, and the one on the right is my LinkedIn profile now. What funny story that I have to tell you is I went to a session similar to this over in London whenever I was finishing university, and I had always heard, it was a session about LinkedIn, and more specifically about like LinkedIn personal branding. And one of the things that the speaker was talking about was profile photos. And actually I had heard this before, and I'm sure some of you have as well. You know, don't have glasses in your profile photo, don't have half your friend's arm, all this type of thing, have only one person. But the person at the front of the room specifically said, you know, don't have sunglasses on your head. And I remember thinking, feeling very personally attacked, because I thought, that's very random. Like, has he seen my photo because I have sunglasses on my head? And I was completely panicking then that this guy had actually seen my photo. But apparently it's quite common that people will have holiday photos on LinkedIn where they have sunglasses on their head. So this is again, it's not necessarily the worst LinkedIn photo. It's probably better than having no photo. It's definitely better than having no photo. But, you know, it's head and shoulders, but it's clearly, you know, I'm on holidays. I have sunglasses on my head. And I have an off-the-shoulder dress on. So it's probably not the most professional photo I could have had on my LinkedIn, but you can best believe that I was on the tube that day trying to take this photo of LinkedIn after this man had said, don't have sunglasses on your head on LinkedIn. I think it's really important you don't panic about stuff like that, because ultimately it is better than having no photo, and it is fine. But it's just, if we're looking for absolute best practice, you want to have something quite professional, something more reminiscent of my photo on the right. Now, I will let you guys know the photo on the right has been professionally taken, but actually the principles are the same. It's head and shoulders, it's a businessy style outfit. And it's important as well that you think about your goals with LinkedIn, because actually if you aren't trying to land a corporate role, if you're trying to land something, you know, a bit more techy or a bit more artsy, then actually having a corporate headshot probably isn't for you. You need to really think about what you're trying to achieve. And actually, we are having a session on Friday morning all about personal branding on LinkedIn, and we'll talk more about that then. But you need to be really clear with yourself about your goals and what you're really trying to achieve from LinkedIn as well. Because ultimately, for me at the time, I was whenever I left uni, did the Citigroup Graduate Academy, so it was investment banking. So probably the photo on the left is not representative of an investment banker, but actually, if you're trying to achieve something completely different, then it might be appropriate. So think about what you're trying to achieve as well, and really what you're putting out there with your profile photo, but do try to keep it professional if you can. So the next thing then that LinkedIn will ask you for in respect of your profile is a headline. And that's literally just a little tagline that you have at the top of your page, and it goes right under your profile photo. Now, the really important thing is that your LinkedIn headline follows you around. We talk about follows you around LinkedIn, and it actually, anything you comment on, anything that you're associated with on LinkedIn, it will have your name, your profile photo, and it will have your headline as well. And what I would say is within your headline, you want to make it really, really clear what you do. And it should include, for me, it should include 3 key things. So what do you want to do? So perhaps what you're currently doing once you're in your role, but if you are, you know, as you guys are, not actually in your roles yet, then it's what you want to do. So I would have aspiring, so you could have aspiring accountant, aspiring trainee solicitor, whatever that may be. Perhaps then something you've achieved. So it might be that you have won an award for something, and also something a little bit different. So I always like, whenever I do this with my clients, to see people who are, you know, a bit interested, and you think, oh, that's quite interesting. I wonder how a champion steeplechase jockey became a financial management accountant. And it's, you kind of just then go into the people, and it's all about standing out. If we think about this from that perspective, it's about really standing out. And a good example for me of a good headline is this one that I saw whenever I was having a look. So it's an aspiring digital marketer. She is a fashion blogger as well, and she's an award-winning student writer. So this candidate had won awards for her copywriting. She also did some fashion blogging in her spare time, and she was an aspiring digital marketer. And something that she was trying to achieve in her career was to be a digital marketer within, like a high fashion brand. So this will be really, really attractive to them, because what they not only see is that you want to be a digital marketer, which is the important part. That's going to be the actual role. They see that your writing is probably going to be the best part of your digital marketing, your copywriting, that's where your skills lie, but also you have relevant voluntary experience ultimately, and you are clearly interested in the role specifically. So that's an example of a really, really good headline that will both fit in, and also it just means that people have a look and they think, actually, that's exactly the type of person that we are looking for. So I'm just seeing actually a question come in. If you set up your LinkedIn without the headline, is there a way to go back and change it? Yeah, absolutely. So in the section where you edit your profile and your profile picture, you can go in there and it'll let you just add it in. And it's worth saying as well, that means that you can change your headline. So we all change what we want to do. We all change what roles we're kind of going for at the time. If you have something big on your agenda that you really, really want to get, it's okay to actually have a headline that's almost speaking to that application, and then change it again. But really and truly, you want to try and build something that really, really represents you, and something that you feel is going to build your profile on LinkedIn. So yeah, headline, really, really important. And the next thing I will say about profile is fill everything in. LinkedIn is really good at walking you through what you need to do. They've almost gamified it a bit, where you can become like a LinkedIn all-star, and they tell you, right, fill in another section to get gold status, or fill in another section and you'll get an award. And maybe it's just me that's like attracted to stuff like that, but it's really good at taking you through the process of where you're going and what needs to be on next. And things that I would specifically say that you shouldn't forget to include are your experience. So this, it allows you to talk about both volunteering and actual work experience. That's really, really important for employers, and really important if you're using LinkedIn to apply for roles, which we will talk about a little bit later. Include your education. Some people like to put their skill on LinkedIn. I don't think I have my skill on my LinkedIn, although maybe some of you will correct me. But I would say at least your most recent education. So once you get your degree, you should have your university, your years, and also your classification if you want to. You don't have to have it, but it's worth putting on there if you want to. And you can put your school. I remember, so I did law with marketing at Ulster, and at the time I was applying for solicitor traineeships over in London, and actually I had my A levels, because that is relevant for those roles. So you will have some roles that you're applying for, or some roles that you know they're going to be interested in what your A levels were, and that's the time where you might want to put your school and your A levels. But otherwise, just your degree and your classification is more than enough. So we have a couple of questions in. So David's asking, what about placement roles? Yep, put placement roles in there. Yeah, absolutely. And you can hook up the company as well. So it'll, once you type in the company, it'll connect with their logo, and that'll be on your profile. Absolutely, that's what placements are for. And definitely give some detail about what you've done as well, because I think we can sometimes feel, you know, a bit underwhelmed by our own experience and think, you know, oh, especially as a graduate, I don't have enough experience, I don't have as much experience as someone else. But those placement roles are so important, because that's an example of you doing something really, really relevant to where you're going. And if you do have a role that you've done that you think maybe isn't relevant, put it in there, but put more of the generic stuff that you learned that's actually more transferable and relevant to other roles, because actually it's really impressive to employers that you can showcase that you have those experiences and you're able to take them with you. And so we also have a question: should your approach to filling in the profile be different if you run your own business and you're seeking clients rather than jobs? Yeah, so that's something that we are going to talk about at Friday's session, is what your goals are. But actually, yes, it should be slightly different, but it's the same principles. You are filling out your profile to appeal to essentially a target audience, and your target audience are going to be clients, where other people's target audience are going to be employers. What you're asking yourself is, what can I honestly say that they want to hear? And it's almost that we don't want to be too salesy from a business perspective either. So it's all about actually you and putting you across and why your client should work with you, similarly to why an employer should choose you. So yeah, slightly different messaging, but a similar approach. So I hope that's helpful. You can also add skills. So I recommend adding 5 or more, and I would also ask for recommendations. So recommendations are basically a form of a public referral. Is the best way I can put it. It will go on your profile. So if you have someone within your placement, or even a part-time job that you have a particularly good relationship with, you can ask for a recommendation. You can ask if they would mind giving you, and it's just a few lines. If anyone goes onto my LinkedIn profile, you'll be able to see it's just a few lines of people talking about, happy to work with this person, they're really good at XYZ thing. And it's just a good way of having social proof, really. And it means if employers are scrolling down, they can go, oh, that's really good, that's exactly what we want from them. More likely in Northern Ireland, they're going to think, oh, I know that person, I'm going to go and ask him what she's like. And actually it can be really, really good, and a good way of connecting those dots. And okay, so what if the only roles you have had are voluntary and not in the area you want to work in? So there is a section to put volunteering, but if it has been like a professional role and it's been voluntary, you can very much put it into the work experience section. There's no problem with that. And again, I just put those more generic skills that are transferable, and try to make it relevant to where you want to go. So as your profile is really focused, and that would be a top tip of mine, is that your profile is clearly representative of who you are and what you want, rather than being sort of a random collection of ideas. Be really intentional with what you are posting on there. So that is your LinkedIn profile setup. We'll move on now to building your network, which is one of the most important things on LinkedIn, because building your network determines everything from what you're exposed to, so the types of content that, as we say in marketing, are served up to you, and the types of things that you get to see, and it also determines who sees you as well. So building your network is really, really important on LinkedIn. So how can you build connections, and who should you add? So the first really important thing is add people that you already know. So add your classmates, and add your friends, add people that you've been networking with already, people you've perhaps met at an event, maybe even people from school. A good idea in terms of building your network on LinkedIn is to try and get the net spread as wide as possible. Because what might happen, 2 years down the line, is someone who you went to school with, or someone who you went to uni with, might share something that's perhaps a job role, and you might apply for it because they've shared it. And if you hadn't been connected with them on LinkedIn, you might never have found out about it. It's particularly good with classmates, because if you're going down the same sort of career path as them, the chances are the same content is going to be relevant to both of you. So it's really, really good to build out your network with people you already know. Secondly, add people once you meet them. So actually, whenever you are at an event, or you're online, or you meet someone through a club or society, or you meet someone through even likes of, I remember doing my assessment centres, we would have all added each other on LinkedIn, because the chances are, there were 6 of us maybe going to an assessment centre for a grad scheme. Maybe only 1 or 2 of us would have actually got it, but actually the other 4 people are going to have got something else, and it's going to be relevant then that we all stay connected with each other. So once you meet people, if you remember their name, give them an ad on LinkedIn. It's just a good way to keep that that network building. Feel free to add me after today's session if you want to, and it's just a really good way to keep on widening that net, and to keep your sort of, if we think of it as a web of connections, we want to keep that growing and growing, so as we're getting access to as much content as possible. And finally, particularly where you don't know the person, it's just someone that you want to get to know, personalize your connection request. So let the person know why you're adding them. So if it is that they are someone who's leading in your industry, maybe it's someone who has done the same graduate scheme as you a few years before. In the case of if you're a business owner, if it's someone who is in your industry and you'd really like to pick their brains or have a coffee with them, let them know, send them a message and just say, whenever you connect on LinkedIn, it gives you the option to send a message, and just say, you know, hi, Gail, I would love to be connected with you on LinkedIn. It would be great to get coffee, and we could catch up about X topic. And that just lets Gail know, okay, this person isn't just randomly adding me, but they are actually going to be engaging with me, and there's a reason for this. So it's really important that you add a note, particularly if you don't know the person. Obviously, if you're adding one of your classmates, you don't need to write War and Peace about why you want to be connected. But if you don't know the person, it's really, really important that they know what your intentions are really and why you're adding them. And finding opportunities on LinkedIn. So finding opportunities on LinkedIn is something that's really, really important. It's something that when you are looking for jobs in the market, more and more companies are using platforms like LinkedIn to advertise their roles. They are using it to look for talent within the market. They're also having employees share content within LinkedIn as well. Okay, so I've just actually seen we have a question coming in regarding connection requests. Do you recommend accepting every connection request that you receive? I would say no. You should only be accepting connection requests that are relevant to you, and the reason being is that LinkedIn caps your connection list at 30,000. Now that seems like a lot of connections, but you don't want to max that out, because once you do, it's something, I mean, I have quite a lot of connections on LinkedIn, and it's something that I'm quite aware of, because I don't want to be in a position ever where I want to connect with someone but I can't because I've maxed out my connections. And it is a pain to disconnect people, and you can do it, but it is just it's a long drawn out process. So what I would say is, when someone adds you, it's almost a case of, are they going to be a useful addition to my network? And it's not to be meant in the, you know, in the sense where we don't want friends, we only want people that we can gain stuff from, not like that at all. But it's a case of, are they my friend? Do I know them? Do I want to be connected to them, my network? Because particularly if you are a business owner, people will add you to try and sell you stuff. The other thing that you guys will experience will be recruiters will add you, which is great when you're looking for a job. But if you're not looking for a job, it can be very annoying because they will reach out to you and talk you through all the jobs that they might have that might suit you. And so just be quite picky with who you accept. But if there's someone that connects with you and you think they're going to be useful, then by all means accept them into your network. So hopefully that is helpful. So finding opportunities on LinkedIn, again, really, really, it's easy, I think, is probably the main attraction to using LinkedIn to find opportunities, but it's also more and more what companies are using to attract talent. So it's about that meeting of minds, really, really on that front. So how can you use LinkedIn to find a job? So first and foremost, you have the LinkedIn job search. So the LinkedIn job search is whereby LinkedIn have a section called jobs, and you can click into it, and actually it will show you jobs that are relevant to you. And that will be based on information in your profile. So that will be based on what you've said your experience is, and companies you've worked at in the past. So if you have done quite a corporate placement, then it's likely to suggest more corporate roles to you. If you're in the technology sphere, it's likely to recommend things in the technology sphere to you. And it's really, what it's going to do is it's going to curate the job list for you. So you can see things that are up there that are going to be relevant to what you are trying to achieve. And the best thing about LinkedIn job search is that you can just apply with your LinkedIn profile. And so hopefully you can see the dots kind of coming together, but what that means is that you need to have your profile sitting full of information, because that's what's going to go straight to the employer. And where you are in a space, which I know a lot of you guys will be at uni, where you are applying for several roles at a time, this can be a very quick and a very handy way to apply for lots of roles without being without spending hours and hours and hours on your application. But that's why it's so important that your profile is set up properly and it's an accurate representation of you and what you're trying to achieve. Worth saying as well, with LinkedIn job search, you can search roles as well. So it's not just a case of you can click in and see what they're suggesting. You can also search, digital marketing jobs in Belfast or digital marketing jobs in New York. And it's actually a really good way to see global roles as well if you are someone that wants to move, although that's quite difficult at the minute, sadly. But if you are someone that sees yourself working elsewhere in the future, you can have a look at what's available on LinkedIn as well. It will also give you insights into who else is applying. So it's going to tell you, what percentage of how many people have applied first and foremost. It's also going to tell you, are they more qualified or less qualified for the role than you. So you can have a look and see, right, 10 people have already applied for this who are more qualified than me. So maybe that might not be a good use of your time to apply for that role. Still, by all means, put your hat in the ring if you want to, but it just gives you an idea of where to pitch yourself at and what actually candidates that the company will have coming in via LinkedIn job search. The next way that's really, really good to find opportunities on LinkedIn is to follow your target employers. So and I say target here, we often say, dream job, dream employers. And although that is a lovely phrase, we want to actually think of these companies as target employers. It's something that you're actually working towards, you're actually striving to. So follow your target employers. If you make a list of 5 to 10 companies, and the same, by the way, goes for clients, for those of you who own businesses, if you make a list of 5 to 10 companies you would like to engage with, either for your products or services or for employment, follow them, see what types of content they're putting out, maybe start to like it, maybe put the odd comment in there, get on their radar. I can tell you that the people operating LinkedIn profiles on behalf of companies are often in HR or recruitment, and they're often in marketing as well, but those teams work very, very closely whenever it comes to careers content. So engaging with those gets your name in front of those people time and again, and it just means when your application lands on their desk, a little light bulb goes off and they think, yes, I've heard of that person. Even if they think, where have I heard of that person? They know who you are. And so following your target employers, and even better, if you can engage with them, it is a really, really good way to find opportunities on LinkedIn. And of course, they're going to post their open roles as well. So if you are to follow, Ulster University, for example, if you really want to work for Ulster University, they're going to be posting open roles. Same with PwC, same with AFLAC, same with all of those companies. Those open roles are going to be going up on their LinkedIn page, and you are going to be the first to know about it if you are engaged and if you're following them, because they will come up on your newsfeed. So it's a really, really great way just to stay up to date with what do they have going on at this company, and also, are there any open roles at the moment? I know of countless examples where my clients have just posted a role to LinkedIn, and so it hasn't gone on Indeed, it hasn't gone out for recruitment agencies, it's literally on LinkedIn. And so those candidates who aren't on LinkedIn or who aren't engaging with the role via LinkedIn aren't going to find out about it. So following your target employers, I can't stress enough, really, really important. If you are quite picky is maybe the wrong word, but if you have your heart set on a particular company or a particular set of companies that you would like to get a job within, following them can be a really, really good way to achieve this. So very, very useful. The next thing then that I recommend is turn on open to work. So you will have a section up in the same bit of your profile where you can edit everything that will ask if you are open to work. You can let everyone know, which puts like a little open to work badge, and it's all singing, all dancing, I'm open to work. Some people don't want to do that. So what you can do is just let recruiters know. And you can do this while you have a job as well. Just FYI, in the future, if you ever are wanting to make a move throughout your career, you can have open to work where it's only going to let recruiters know that you're open to work in a very subtle way. So your company, although it doesn't promise you that they won't find out, they are far less likely to find out. So it's a really, really good tool, because it's just you saying, I am open to finding a job, whether that is you're shouting it from the rooftops via the open to work sticker, or you are just whispering it to recruiters and telling them that you'd like to hear about open roles. It puts you on their radar, and it also means for the algorithm purpose, and I don't want to get too into the depths of algorithms, but people who are open to work generally tend to be served up quicker to recruiters, just because LinkedIn knows those are the type of people that recruiters are hoping to engage with. And finally, this one might seem a little bit weird, especially for those of you, I know you guys are having an assessment simulation next week. So for those of you who have assessment centres, and that's the sort of process you're going to be going through in the near future, doing a little bit of digging via LinkedIn can be super useful, because actually you can find out a lot about someone via their LinkedIn profile. So oftentimes when you apply for a role, it very much depends on the company, but if you know the department and you know the sort of where your role will be within that, you can find out very quickly who the manager and senior manager are, and they're very likely to be the people who are interviewing you. Sometimes, I know when I worked, I think it might have been City or PwC, it was one of the two, they actually tell you who's interviewing you. So they'll say, right, these two people are going to be interviewing you, and that's specifically for the purpose of, so look them up on LinkedIn. And what basically you can do is you can click into their profile, you can see what are their experiences, you can often see where they went to school, you can see what they studied at university, and you can see all of this information that you guys have put onto your profile. You can see this about that person. That's a really, really good way to prepare for an interview, because you can garner a lot about what type of person they're going to be, what type of personality they're going to have, but also you can see maybe you went to the same school, maybe you've studied the same thing at university, maybe you have the same interests. And obviously don't go into the interview and say, I've looked you up and I see that you went to this school. But if you bring it up, they might then say, oh yes, that's where I went, or oh, I really love that. And it can just be a common thread, and that you're really, really trying to establish in an interview or an assessment centre, and it can help you. Stand out. So yeah, it's really, really good tool actually for interview preparation, as well as using it for your actual job search as well. So I'd highly, highly recommend that. And the same goes for if you are ever in a networking scenario, maybe you are going to an event and there's a speaker that you'd really like to speak to, you can go on and find out stuff about them. You can think of questions to ask, think of ways to stand out, and it's just a really, really good way to almost build a connection with someone in quite a quick space of time. So overall, this would be my success checklist for LinkedIn. I know we have talked about quite a lot today, and we've covered a lot of ground, and we're going to be covering even more on Friday morning. But I wanted to give you this sort of takeaway as more of a, if you can only do these 4 things, I would highly, highly recommend it. So set up your profile in full. Nip on after the session tonight, tomorrow, the weekend, go through. I know it's tedious, I know it can take some time, but just set it up as best you can, because the lucky thing about LinkedIn profiles are that once they're set up, they don't really change unless you're adding roles or adding experience into them, and they tend to stay semi-stagnant, and they tend to be the same information that doesn't really change. So once it's done, it's done. But I would recommend doing that first and foremost, setting your profile up in full, including a photo, because I can tell you now, there are statistics, but my real life experience is that employers tend to gravitate more towards LinkedIn profiles that have photographs on them. Follow businesses and influencers that you are interested in. So again, follow your target employers, your target customers. Influencer seems like a strange word to use in connection with LinkedIn, but I follow influencers like Taj Lavani from the Dragon's Den. I follow Ariana Huffington. There are so many almost influential professionals you can follow, especially so if you get a grad job within a huge corporate, it's a good idea to follow the CEO. They might not be in the UK, they might not be anywhere near your department, but actually it's a good idea to follow them because you can keep up to date with company updates. So yeah, follow influencers either within your industry, within your business, your company, or just people you're interested in, and people are going to be sharing content that you really like. Connect with people so take some time and connect with a few classmates, connect with people from your placement, connect with just people that that you think might be open to connecting. I know I'm connected even with some of my former lecturers. I know that I'm connected with old bosses, clients. It's just a really good way both to build your network, but also to see what's going on in their spheres. So you'll get access to their content and what they're posting about and what they're liking and sharing. LinkedIn's really, really good at cross-pollination, so it's really good at showing me not only what my connection has liked, but what their connections and their connections, so they do it up to third degree connections, are liking. So following and connecting with people can be gold dust for finding out about things that are going on LinkedIn. And my final tip in terms of the checklist is start to engage, start to actually like things, comment, get your name, and more importantly, your headline in front of the people you want to know who you are, because that name, picture of you, and a few words about what it is you do and why you specifically can really, really stick in someone's mind. And I have heard it said before by employers, oh, I've heard of her on LinkedIn, or oh, is that the girl that does XYZ thing? And it's literally just because they have seen your headline and your profile photo on LinkedIn. So start to engage, start to really put yourself in front of employers. And we are going to cover that in more detail on Friday and how you can engage and what are the best ways to engage. So if that's something that you're interested in, we will be looking at that on Friday morning as well. But yeah, set up the profile, follow businesses and influencers, connect with people that you already know, and start to put yourself out there, start to do a little bit of engagement as well. So guys, that is everything for today. I have left some time now to take any of your questions, so feel free just to pop them up in the chat, and let me know anything else you'd like to know about LinkedIn, whether that be from the perspective of your own business or getting a job. And do follow Nocturnal as well, and again, as I said earlier, feel free to connect with me personally. My name is Ellie Francis, and I promise I will accept your connection request. But yeah, so guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope this has been helpful for you, and again, if there's anything now that you would like me to cover sort of in the last 5 to 10 minutes, just let me know, and I'm happy to.
So does anyone have, thank you so much for that, Ellie, does anyone have any questions? So you can use the chat box, or if you want to, you can also unmute yourself as well. Yeah, you have the ability, so you can either unmute yourself to ask a question if that's easier, or you can use the chat box. So feel free to pop in any questions. Yes, David, do you have a question?
Yeah, if I may ask, why is it called Nocturnal?
Oh, Nocturnal. So whenever I started the company, so I did used to travel quite a lot. Obviously, with COVID, I haven't traveled as much for work, but the NEP side of it is in terms of Neptune, so to represent the Belfast maritime history, which is a lot nerdier when you say it out loud, and nocturnal, so essentially because brands and employer brands never really rest or never really stopped, so that's kind of where that came from, and the domain was available at the time.
Makes sense. Also the king of the sea as well.
Yes.
Neptune. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So there's lots of thank yous flooding in there, Ellie. Everyone, lots of people finding it really helpful. So thank you very much. It was a really practical session. Just last chance to ask any questions. Remember that Ellie is along again on Friday, and she's actually joining us next week too for a couple of sessions on LinkedIn. So do remember, and I would probably just maybe, Ellie, say this is somebody's first time. They've attended today's session, but prior to coming in today, they hadn't set up LinkedIn and they weren't on LinkedIn at all. Do you think that they could now attend Friday session if it's something that they were interested in actually, okay, I want to go and I want to do this now, and would it be okay for them to come along to Friday session at this stage?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want people to get overwhelmed, because being on LinkedIn, having your profile set up and actually using it as a newsfeed tool to be aware of stuff is completely okay. Everything else is just enhancing the effect that it has on you. So by all means, please do come along on Friday. I know I'm the type of person, I like to have all the info and then start the task, but don't start to feel like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do all this, because it is a building block process, and it is something that you will master. But yeah, by all means, come along on Friday, and even if you manage to have a look at your profile and stuff over the weekend, feel free to come next week as well, and get almost a refresher, and we'll be running Friday's session again next week too. So again, you can leave sometime if you want, but by all means, come along on Friday. Yeah.
It's great. Now we've one question coming in here from Riona. Are there any kinds of etiquette rules we should be aware of on LinkedIn? The whole networking thing's quite new, which will be the same. It will apply to a lot of people in the session as well.
Yep, no, absolutely. LinkedIn, I mean, I would say yes, more so actually on the business side. So if you're using LinkedIn for business, probably the biggest etiquette rule is not to sales pitch people. So don't add people and then immediately pitch them your products or immediately ask them for a meeting. It's about that bit of engagement first. But in terms of LinkedIn, the etiquette wise, profile photo is a really big one. Also, if you're adding people that you don't know, make sure that you leave a note to say why you're adding them. It's just kind of courtesy that they aren't going to think that it's random. It's not only that it looks bad, but it can sometimes come off as a bit rude. So yeah, I would say definitely let people know why you're adding them would be a big one. Don't sales pitch them, and also don't directly, if you're in a recruitment process, don't directly contact like the hiring manager or the company via LinkedIn. Stick to the official channels in terms of like the email or the phone calls or however they are conducting that process, just because they have an obligation to keep it fair for everyone. So while it's okay to look at their profile, it's okay to be connected with them. Try not to use LinkedIn as a communication tool if there's already almost a conversation going on about the role via email. So I would say those would be my big three. Don't sales pitch people. Don't add people that you don't know unless you're going to let them know why you want to talk to them. And also don't contact companies if you're actually already within the recruitment process. Just trust the process will continue along, but feel free to continue engaging with their stuff. So those will be my big three, but don't be intimidated by it. It's not, there are no big etiquette rules where you're going to get in loads of trouble or anything. It's just a case of feeling your way around, and actually just do what you would do in real life. Be polite, be friendly, and there won't be any problems. I'm seeing as well, there's one, what should we write under job description? So yeah, if you think about it as a CV, so if you think about creating your CV whenever you write the sort of roles and responsibilities section, this is very, very similar, but try to keep it relevant. So what you're almost, rather than looking at what you've done in the past, look at what you're trying to do in the future, and actually craft your job description. Obviously, it needs to be true. It needs to be an honest reflection, but focus it on the sides of the job that are relevant to where you're trying to go.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
When it comes to sharing of articles, let's say I read on LinkedIn News, how relevant is that? If I read an article that I like, is that something of relevance, or am I just over flooding people with an article probably they would have read? Is it similar to your Facebook or?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically sort of a Facebook for business style of a platform. I would highly recommend sharing articles, and almost whenever you share it, will give you the option to put a little bit of text. Just write why you're sharing it. Anything, and actually this is relevant to David's question as well. Would I recommend a video CV? Anything that makes you stand out is a good thing. On LinkedIn, you need to. So sharing articles is really, really good because it shows a little bit more about you, particularly if it's an article that's it might be relevant to your role, or it might be something completely different. It shows a little bit more of an insight into you, and it also shows that you're someone who is engaged, that you know what's going on around you. I would be careful here, and this kind of touching back on the etiquette thing with politics. Again, it's completely up to you. There are many, many people on LinkedIn who talk about politics and who share their politics, but it's just something to think of in your head. You know, it is a platform for employers, and it's a case of, do I want an employer to know about this? And so it's fine to share them. I don't have any problem with people talking about politics on LinkedIn. It can be quite interesting, but it's just something to be aware of. It's obviously it's a public platform, and it's something that you are putting out there. So I would be careful what you're sharing, but actually really, really encourage you to share and talk as much as you can, because it's more of an insight into you and it helps you stand out. And I would say the same, David, about your video CV. It's not personally something I have done, just because I obviously am a business owner now, so I don't have a CV on LinkedIn. I am a big lover of videos. Anyone who is connected with me will know that I like to talk to my LinkedIn followers via video. I just find it really easy, compared with writing articles. But actually, anything video at the minute does really, really well, because if you think an employer can look you in the eye and they can see a real person standing in front of them, and sometimes that can be really, really impactful.
Thanks so much. Okay, well, that was brilliant. And I mean, I'm sure Ellie won't mind me saying this, but if you did maybe have a question that, well, either you can ask her in one of the additional sessions, or you could connect with her on LinkedIn and ask if there's something maybe particularly that you didn't get a chance to ask today. So just while we're finishing up, and if there are a couple of final questions that we get time to cover at the end, just want to highlight a few sessions that are running throughout the rest of the week. So there are, as you guys, I'm sure many of you in the session today have already been along to other events throughout the week, but just to let you know that we have more events running throughout today and up until the end of the week. So we have Tor Abrams, who's along at 12:30 today. And Tor he's enjoyed a lot of success within his career, and he's going to be talking about that success and how he has enjoyed so much success. He'll also be talking about how COVID could actually be to your advantage, and how the work landscape is going to look down the line in the years to come. And then we have, if anyone has a business idea floating around in your head and you'd like to explore how to develop that, we have Leo Mullen will be along from the Causeway Enterprise Agency, and that again is happening this afternoon. So if that's something that appeals to you and you're just wondering and you're thinking, I wonder what steps would I need to take, then I would encourage you to get along to that. And then tomorrow morning, we have Alison Hutchinson from Spark Coaching. He will be along to talk about just really how to launch and learn versus plan and perfect. So how to develop that growth mindset. If you've been along to many of the sessions this week, you'll probably have heard that coming up again and again about the importance of developing a growth mindset. So he's going to be talking to us more about that and how do we actually develop this growth mindset. And then the last one that's not in this slide, but it's something that's going to be a fantastic session, is with our NI Senior Women's Football. And some of the ladies are along, so they're going to be talking about their journey and about the ups and the downs that they have experienced and what they have learned that could be passed on to us about how to kind of journey through that disappointment and keep going, and how that has paid off and how they have enjoyed that success both individually and as a team. So sharing their journey in that. So yes, I think we had one final question. I know that our time is up, but I do think there was one question come through there. Yes, so is it recommended, Ellie, to add your Twitter handle and your Instagram accounts on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I would say yes. Now, again, it's all about what you want to project. So is your Twitter and your Instagram, are those a reflection of what you want employers to see? Are those a reflection of you, of what you're trying to achieve? Again, anything that makes you more unique, I would say add it, because sometimes employers can be flooded with CVs. They do look you up on LinkedIn to see sort of what you're about. They sometimes look you up on Facebook and Instagram or Twitter anyway. But if you are adding those to your LinkedIn profile, you are inviting employers to look at them. So that's what I've just remembered. And same goes for clients if you're a business owner. So yes, I would say absolutely link them, get as many eyes on you as possible. But obviously, if it's something that you'd rather use for personal use, or something that it's not even necessarily there's anything bad on them. It's maybe just that you don't want to have them connected to your professional life. Maybe don't add them. But actually, if you're happy for employers to see them, you're happy for your clients to see them, add them, because it keeps adding to that personal brand, and it keeps making you more unique.
Fantastic. Well, look, we will end it there. Just a final thank you to Ellie for coming along and delivering that session with us today. And we look forward to having you back again on Friday. And we'll maybe see some of you guys back in the session with us on Friday again. So thank you very much and have a lovely afternoon.